Thank you all for coming. This is the Representative Town Meeting Education Committee meeting. It's a special meeting, and tonight is Wednesday, April 24th, 2024. It is 6:36 on the. We'll begin with roll call. I'm Chairman Whitney here. Representative Alexis Dutton.
Here.
Representative Katrina Fitzgerald.
Here.
Representative Robinson.
Here.
Representative Christie and Representative Andrew Terrell. And so we have all members. And now we can go for introductions. I'll just say I'm Mike Whitney. Andrew Terrell.
Christy McElroy. Alexis Dutton. Marie Robertson. Katrina Fitzgerald. Andrea Akron, Board of Ed.
Matthew Schulman, Board of Ed.
Susan Austin, Superintendent.
Phil Piazza, Assistant Superintendent.
Jay Whiteloff, Board of Ed.
Jennifer Waite, Board of Ed.
Ian Thomas, Board of Ed.
I felt like this microphone here was the loudest. Is that okay?
I'll fix it. You guys talk.
I guess we just okay, so I'll be talking for a bit. So this is a committee meeting, and we're here to discuss the budget as well as another, CFP, which is the capital improvement project items related to education. So there are two agenda items there. The second one. And I'll just mention in the written minutes, it's brought to my attention that actually in the CIP part of the agenda, there's 6 points listed, only CIP 5 at State High School auditorium that we can consider. And the way the meeting proceeds is we'll take up our first agenda item, which is the education budget. And someone will move, one of the committee members will move a recommendation to the RTM, a recommended number of funding. And since it's a committee meeting, and we're not voting to approve or not approve something, it's just we're recommending. And then our next audience for that report is the RTM. It's a recommendation, and that is carried with a simple majority. There are no 2/3 rules. I should say that because we have all members present at that level, so we can vote. And the rules of this go that there's a current number, and I can give you that. The town council approved 86 million. Actually, I won't say it yet because I haven't introduced that. There's a current number for the town council, and before that, there's a number that came from the Board of Ed and was approved by them. It was also forwarded to the town manager, sometimes that's referred to as the Board of Ed number, sometimes referred to as the town manager's number. In this case, that's the highest number. We can only go up to the highest number through this committee, and we can go down to 0. So that's our range. And in terms of the procedure, for each agenda item, there are only 2. Someone will move a number. A tradition has been to start with the town council number, and then after that, you can have 2 amendments on this. And those are 2 amended numbers, the first and the second amendment. And those can be higher or lower. It just can't be so close that it might be considered in the parlance of the frivolous amendment. And then those will be seconded, and then the person who approves that number gets the first chance to, justify or say why they moved that number. It might be as simple as this is the town council number, this is the Board of Ed number. It could be as simple as that. And then at that point, at any point after a number is moved, we can discuss it. Input in this meeting comes from usually questions asked by the RTM Education Committee members and then answered by school staff or the Board of Ed members. There's no venue for spoken public input at this meeting, but May 1st, next week, as the full RTM right at the start, there's the traditional citizens petition. And so you just sign up to speak there. And then, of course, you can also write. And I've got many postcards just tonight. I mean, I received some on email. I wrote a copy of my emails. This is kind of quite a few more. So that's good to see the interest on important topic. And we don't have particular time limits for asking questions and answering. I'll kind of monitor the quorum. I'd say. And then we'll go through. We don't have to go in sequence. If there are amended numbers on the floor, we'll amended number, the last number first. If that's approved, then that's it. We'll move on to the next agenda item. If it's not, we move to the next number, and at that point, people can introduce another number between that. We always vote for the last number that's correct. So I expect the formative discussion. Of course, it's an important issue, and it's also a budget item. It's a big service and sort of resource for the town. So with that, that's our preamble. Just wondering before we get started, if any of the members have procedural questions.
Any questions the RTM Education Committee asks can be answered by any Board of Ed member or the chair and staff.
I would say, in general, it can be answered by any, but your question to the superintendent or Board of Ed chair, and then they can redirect.
Somewhere. There's my new water bottle.
Thank you.
I don't have any water in your car, do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
They're ready to go.
You coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say.
Look at the lot.
Okay.
Okay, sure. That kind of is fun. All right. So we've got our call to order, we've got our roll call. Item number 3 is new business. It's 3.1, 2024-390 RTM Education Committee FIE 2025 proposed budget review. And our next thing after that, adjournment. We are not there yet. And this is account 1080 Board of Education budget. And in terms of the actual town budget document, it's page 171. There's some information there, but by far there's much more detailed information in the Board of Education educational supplement. And that's a separate document. That's available online at both of them. And so we started at the track. I will say before we move any numbers for reference, the town council approved number is $86,425,178. And the Board of Education number is higher than that. It's $87,958,484. Okay, a board member here.
Hi, I'm Adrian Johnson, Board of Ed.
Okay. Anyone like to make a motion for a number for account 1080? And this is a recommendation.
Coverage was ordered.
Just
Should be 87. Go to the higher number.
you'd like to start with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's okay. I would like to go to the higher number. I would like to go to the higher number because I like to play Monopoly.
Oh, okay, well, we
No,
know.
I'm just trying to say the motion is let's go to the 87 over the 86.
So your motion is, you're recommending, you gotta read the exact.
Okay.
You're recommending.
$87,958,484 approved by the board or suggested by the Board of Ed.
I'll second that for discussion.
And this is for account 1080 education. We can begin discussion, and I just wanted to verify that that number is correctly for your mind.
I think I read it down correctly.
The Board of Education for furniture, 87,958,480.
That's it.
Right. Start with questions from our members.
I have only one question, and I say this as a professor from the University of Connecticut Stores. And we have an astonishing number of teachers in the room who are not allowed to speak tonight. And we are having similar discussions in stores right now. And so I would like to learn from the Board of Ed how to help the teachers ask questions that help them to continue to do the jobs they do for our students. Because that is our discussion at the University of Connecticut right now. Is, okay, you want to take that money and put it there? How do we still do our jobs the best we can? And I don't know, but if somebody could provide guidance, since this astonishing group in the room teaches our kids, isn't allowed to talk tonight, which is difficult for teachers. And next week you can talk all you want, apparently. But I'm asking, what questions should they ask? Because we all are here together. Thank you.
And they couldn't hear it there.
You can't hear that much, or
I can stand up and shout when I do this in the classroom. I mean, my God, I can project. I like,
we'll bring them up.
trust me, projection is not my problem.
I can summarize, so you're interested in hearing the voice of that members. And I'm sure that they heard any viewpoints.
Well, I know that our teachers have written to the RTM to express themselves, and they know that they'll be able to speak. I plan on doing a little bit of an overview to kind of orient the RTM Education Committee. And then the board has worked tirelessly on this budget and has removed $7 million from the beginning. And is now, with the new number, being asked to remove another $2.8 million. So it's extraordinary. I've never seen it in my 43-year career, and it's frightening. So I would like to orient you and talk a little bit about Groton Public Schools and all the good work that the people behind me, teachers and administrators, the PTO, the parent organizations have done in this decade to promote our schools. Fitch High School has just been named as one of the leading schools in Connecticut from US World and US News and World Report. And I took Congressman Courtney today for a tour of our career pathways. So beyond our AP, IB, International Baccalaureate, we also have a career pathway. Every freshman picks a pathway. So there's so much work that the boards before and this board have accomplished in providing for students. So I would think that their voices are all about what do we need in this budget for our students. And that's what it's all about. It's all about that for the board. It's all about that, I would think, for the community. And it's certainly all about that for the educators. So I'm just surmising, but you will be hearing from them for sure.
Thank you. And I do want to say that for the program, you started as mentioned, many postcards, members, teachers, members of the Groton Education Association. And this back here has got 15. I don't know if I could estimate this well, I'd say that. And then we have the standing room only in the room here, and this is the large room, the town hall. And maybe it's a good time. I know we're gonna have the introduction. I feel like that's too long right now. So I want to mention the letters we received on email. And this is as of 4 p.m. tonight. There were, I would say, 2 letters in support of the lower town council number. That's from Catherine Chase and Matt Dion. And I apologize if I mispronounced anyone's name. There was another letter from Teresa Grantowski, former mayor, pointing out, this was not necessarily for against either number, but pointing out that there is a fund balance that the town can tap into. There are other ways to pay for education and just raise taxes. And so that fell in my other category. And then the rest we're advocating for higher Board of Education number, at least I'd say. And I'll say all these letters, whether for or against a certain number, I found them very heartfelt and well thought. So I appreciate that, contributing actually. And so I'll read out the names of the higher Board of Education number letters in support of that. Ellen and Joel Safransky, Elena Smith, Andrew Kidd, Fahim Mansour, Elson Mansour, Chelsea Rodriguez, Gretchen Romley, Laura Cato, Sarah Servideo, Marin Marciano, Miranda Krause, Kristen Webster, Jim Gustafson, Lynn Bellinger, Tori Patrick, and those were individual letters. And then there was also a letter from the Mystic River Magnet School, and it was sent to me by Megan Strand, co-chair, but it was signed by many people, and here they are. Alexandra Halverson, also co-chair, Jennifer Young, Lynn Bellinger, Kimberly Grant, Allison Dewar Zrillis, Kristen Webster. Some of these names are also sent individual letters. Christine Duarte, Amanda Scott, Denise Corcoran, Christina Anta Kowak, Danielle Leonard, Keith McKee, Mandy Stamp, Robin Crandall, Molly Wilson, Kelly Sebady, Allison Harris, Vivian McKillop, Carol Moraski, Diane Schaefer, Carolyn Delaney Spear, Gary Delaney, Stephanie Oliveris, Jessica Simpson Staggers, Christopher Simpson, Patrick Florio, Denise Florio, Megan Bishop, Victoria Thomas, Caitlin Rednick, Swan Nell Webb, Enoch Webson, Katie Bangs, Keith Bangs, Harley Ritzenbach, Carl Strand III, Victoria Klimas, and Ashley Smith. And I apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name. That's probably the hardest. So thank you all for joining. And at that point, I think to sort of address your question, it'd be great to get a budget overview, because that does show the priorities of the school system, education in the town, the needs of the students, and the teachers, and the staff.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So this is really the mission of our district, teaching and learning. It's simple, but it's straightforward and it gets to the point. We provide dynamic, rigorous curriculum, ensure effective, engaging instruction, and embrace excellent learning environments, including the 3 new schools that were built for Groton. And then cultivating an environment of diversity, equity, and inclusion is a statement of ours. I would say that there are some highlights that I'm going to show you, and I'm not going to read every one, but literacy instruction is really a focus of ours at this point. It always has been, but we're doing even more with regard to the right to read bill and making sure that we have this reading built in K-5. And it's a passion project. Our teachers are so invested in this, and our board is so invested, and it does come with funding. There are many unfunded mandates. I'm sure you've heard. I've got a book like this from CABE from 2023 and more going through as we speak. So they are wonderful ideas, but oftentimes come without funds from the state or the federal government. So, but we look at all of our curriculum areas. We really have a STEAM approach here. We have intra-district magnets at the elementary. We have an impressive Groton Middle School that has Project Lead the Way and has both STEM and arts. It's really phenomenal, and they really align, both the magnet schools and the Groton Middle School align with our career pathways. We want kids to find out what it is they're good at and what they love to do. And I hear it all the time as they're graduating, what they're interested in doing. We also have the International Baccalaureate. We're one of very few schools, and we have the middle years program for 6 through 10. And then we have both a careers program and a diploma program. And we actually have teachers who've worked to make sure that if you're taking an IB course, then you can also get AP credit in many of them, and also UConn credit. So a child could leave with a diploma in IB and also have credit. And so that's pretty important. And they get into really fine schools and work very hard. But we also have the career pathways, as I said today, and we're really growing those and making sure that the kids have what they need. We did bring the Congressman Courtney into our foods program, where we have a very outdated kitchen and we would like to reform it to be more restaurant-like. And I put that in for a CIP. Year after year, we've done a design, and we're hoping that one day we will be able to refurbish some of the vintage wing of Fitch. But anyway, and we have a new NNDCC, National Naval Defense Cadet Corps, that will hopefully be a JROTC. And once it becomes a JROTC, it will be totally federally funded. We have been funded it with some Art Besser. We have a teacher already that teaches the course, but also teaches science. We also talked about transition kindergarten. There's a new age requirement in the state where you have to be 5 years old when you start. Connecticut was one of the only states that 4-year-olds were coming to kindergarten. And it was my teachers who brought it to my attention, both kindergarten and preschool and pre-K, that were saying a lot of times it was really their age that wasn't developmentally appropriate. So we created a district-wide TK program for children who were not turning 5 until the fall. So it was really for those September to December children. And really the thought was that we could provide that almost in every school, because what will happen next year with this bill is that we'll have 2/3 of the students eligible, but that other 1/3 could then go to a TK. So a kindergarten teacher for 1 year could switch over to be a TK teacher. And then we would have the full group the following year. That way I wouldn't lose kindergarten teachers and then have to rehire them. We've got very talented team. And that is something that would really be a boost. I'd love to see universal pre-K if the state could ever come to the funding on that. That would really give us a boost. And then, we want to continue to support our magnets, our intra-district magnets. In this budget so far, none of our programs have been cut, but there are a lot of staff. We've lost 124 staff members mostly from the Art Besser, but then others too. And then of course, there's a new age change for the special ed students. They need to complete school their 22nd year. So that adds on to requirements, and for us, for the education. I want to talk a little bit about the drivers, and we have this arrow chart that talks about wages are up based on contract, but we also have, the FTEs from Art Besser. They have been removed, but we do have the state minimum wage increase as well. So with those contracts that have been negotiated, we have to honor those negotiations and those contracts. So that's a must. Transportation's up. We only had 2 bids for our transportation. They were all high across the state. So it's nearly $1 million this year. And all the costs, even the athletics, the field trips. I had to negotiate 3 field trips free for each of the schools, but it's not enough. So all those costs are up. Insurance is up. Our healthcare is really what's driving this budget at $3.2 million. There have been a past history where we've been asked by both the town and then town bodies to take from our health reserve or to offset health reserve for healthcare costs. And it's really been over time, I would say, since I've been here, that was requested. And I think that now our claims are really high. You know, COVID was hard to get appointments and now people are really taking care of themselves. And I think there has been a history of high claims, especially in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $200,000. So, you know, we're just really monitoring that. And with that, there's been more need for substitutes too, for both, you know, for all different, you know, groups. Utilities are up just like at home, you know, there's no getting around it. Inflation has hit us hard. And our DoD supplemental income, which is related to the number of military dependent students, is really sunsetting because we've used it for technology over all these years. And we are seeing that the number from impact aid so far is less than what we need to make those DoD supplement continue. We're not certain, but it looks like it's not going to be for next year. And we usually get about 500,000 a year, and it is used for our technology. So, yeah.
I just want to mention, in addition to these drivers, there's also Susan referred to as the state unfunded mandates.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, for example, we budgeted for the Right to Read program. And there's also some HVAC testing.
Yes.
That if we don't do it, we won't be able to apply for state grants in the future. So these are, add all these up, this is the budget. There's no increase in staffing. There's no increase in programs. This is just to stay where we were pre-COVID.
We have 4 less staff members than we had prior to COVID. And, you know, so it's really, and we've lost a lot of our tutors. We really had in the ARPA-ESSER, we had a lot of tutors. We got a high dose tutoring, additional funding, and that actually lasts, hopefully, if we get the extension through next year. And those are all really important. I've said that everybody's not okay. Academically, socially, emotionally, it's really taken its toll. A lot of educators think that the effects of COVID will be seen for like a decade. So every year, like our 12th graders this year, they were in 9th grade when, you know, coming to school, like that, you know, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and, you know, they still feel the effects. So, you know, every single class has something that they remember where they were, you know, during those several years. So it's going to be really challenging. I'm already looking for grants for more tutors. So we do have a history of looking for a lot of DoDEA grants and anything that the state has to offer. But it's going to be super challenging.
That federal funding has gone away, but the needs have not gone away.
No.
There's already going to be 125 fewer
Staff members.
staff serving our students. That's already, and we felt that it was the, we took no pleasure in that, but it was the responsible thing to do for the taxpayer, to not rely on grants that had gone away. But by the same token, hope that was a good faith show that what was left was necessary, and there was nothing really left to reduce.
And we're going to be able to show you some of that. It's pretty dynamic to see what 7 million looks like, and then what would almost 3 million more look like. And it's challenging. It could be devastating, I think.
If I might just say something, just to bring that graph rate to numbers. That added up to $6.1 million that are fixed costs outside of everything, which is 7.5% of this year's budget. If you add in nurses that we have recently had to absorb into our number, that equates to a 9% increase. So the real increase is 9% with the nurses that that have to be found in other places now. And that's not including what Jay was saying, unfunded mandates, like going to read and buildings in HVAC. So this is where we're starting, and I think we'll get into some of these numbers. But when you hear the percentages, we're gonna have to cut. It's astounding.
And they're numbers, but there's a person attached to every number.
That's actually just, I was wondering, where you kind of have a choice, you seem to be probably about halfway through on the budget overview.
Yeah.
Would you like to continue that part of things, or would you just like a field questions on this part? I suggest maybe going through them.
Let me go through the presentation and then we can certainly, I think we have some backup data too, to really drive your point home. That they can see the numbers, because it's really pretty shocking. So the next one is the FY25 revenue to support education, and this is all revenue. So we get most of our money is the orange. That's the state ECS. That comes in at about $26.6 million. And that's been pretty consistent over the years, especially when we earned our alliance. It was kind of safeguarded for us. Don't know what the future is going to hold in all of that. But for now, that's what we know we get from our state. Federal government is in the blue because we are the largest military dependent and military connected district and have the most, and with students or with parents working or living on federal property. We have 4.6 million for next year estimated. Last year it was about 4 million. I just did the numbers and I think that when I added it all up, it was close to $6 million. So we've been, many of the things that are revenue have been coming over. As a matter of fact, when we looked at a 5-year history, the Board of Ed revenue over what was projected or predicted was about $10 million that has come to our town. So, you know, in the name of education. So I think that's pretty impressive.
Which has not gone for educational purposes. It's gone.
No,
to general fund.
no.
They're not gone directly to the board, but indirectly, I guess, to serve the children.
It reduces the taxpayer burden. It goes through the town.
So this projected 4.6 projected federal. I don't know if you can disclose this in your meetings with Representative Courtney. Is he foreseeing that we would possibly, because of the dire circumstances that the town is in right now, and we're being squeezed from every direction, you know, the taxpayer and the staffing to keep the schools vibrant? What is the projection that he believes is going to happen? You're saying could be up to 10 million in past. What do you think? What's the feeling or the?
I haven't heard that, you know, it's been steadily increasing for us. It really depends on our numbers. Impact aid isn't like the DoD supplement. It's not just military dependent. It's a lot of others. It's military connected or federal people living or working on federal property. So we count every student, and our parents did a great job this year. I think we were close to 90%, you know, filling out the forms. So they've done a good job.
And the reason I bring that up is past experience. That's always been an issue for Groton. And Groton has always had to face this issue every single year. When I was on this committee in the past, we continue to face it. And this year, extremely important. So I don't know if there needs to be a little bit of, I'm not saying you're doing great, stronger communication to this part of this budget, because we need this money. Otherwise, we may have to raise taxes, and it could really get specifics, but this is going to really severely impact people that really may not be able to save. And some people may move out because of the education part, and some people may be putting their house on the market. So that is just something that caught my eye and my ear. And I think that would be maybe something that I know we can't tell direct where those monies are going to go, but that is something that was a red flag, even though it's a blue right here, a blue flag that I just saw, that maybe we can try to work on that and really encourage our fair share, because this has been going on since I was in. this town.
So you need to understand the point that we have always underrepresented the number of dollars that comes into this district.
Right.
We have been very modest, and it's been an overage of $10 million in the past 7 years or 5 years. So it's really coming for the better of the town than what we had predicted.
hope
And
that will
I hope it continues.
Right.
But it was a little more this year even than last year. So it was more closer to 6 million. So, and then there's budget categories. Every school budget has it. You've got salaries and benefits. That's the driver. It's 3/4 of your budget. You also have transportation, tuition, insurance, non-contractual expenses, and utilities. And that's what makes up every school budget. And you can see that the majority, the 67.4 million, is in staffing. Then we have a grant history. And if you look, the ARP ESSER did this across the nation, where it escalated our, ability to fund tutors and teachers and all kinds of supplies and technology. And it came at just the right time. But like I said, the needs haven't gone away, but the funds have. And in the orange are some of the other grants that we have gone out to receive. While you see the orange is pretty a larger area for 24, 25. You don't see as much 26, 27, 28. That just means we haven't gone out to get them. So every year we apply for $1 million, 1.250 million for DODEA. And that's really what's helped us with all of these wonderful initiatives.
Could you just for a moment just describe the distinction between a categorical grant and a competitive grant?
I'd be happy to. A categorical grant is usually a state grant like the title grants, the IDEA for special ed, where it comes to you each year and you design a plan and you spend according to what that plan is. And it's really to close the gap in achievement. It's to support special needs students. But a competitive grant is one that is competitive and you go after it. And we've done this every year with Department of Defense Education Activity. Starting in 2016, our first one was a literacy grant. Got a math grant, a STEM grant, a STEM careers grant. We received a building communities grant. So we've just written and submitted our 8th multi-million or $1 million grant. And we have been fortunate to receive kind of each one. And then there are other competitive grants. The state provides competitive, even ARP, they even do some extra ARP grants, ARP ESSERs with the leftover monies, federal monies. So we do have someone part-time who does grants and she's extraordinary. And she's, we're constantly teaming and working towards finding funds, additional funds to support education. And they come directly to us.
So the monies that you get from the grants, are they only a 1-year funding, or does it go into a 2-3 year?
It depends on the grant. DODEA is a 5-year. It's pretty comprehensive, and it's the kind that would include a project manager and a evaluator. It's only for the time of the budget of the cycle. And then a lot is spent on professional learning and, supplies and technologies. And there might be a staff member, but it would only be for 5 years. So it.
So again, cognizant of the 100 people sitting behind us who have been working all day and need to go home to have dinner and be with their families. When we talk about materials for the classroom at UConn, at the moment, I have to buy my own pens and my own paper, and I'm a fully endowed professor. So I'm talking to people that are bringing their own money to the classroom. And so what I'm asking you to help us understand for the real conversation, which is happening May 1st, is what should these people ask us as a committee? What do they have to pay for? Because we love to teach. Those of us who are teachers, we're actually smart enough. We actually could have got jobs at Morgan Stanley. We chose to do what we do. people always think this is bewildering, but we are smart and we teach the future, but we now have to buy our own like staples and paper clips. And so I'm asking, like, okay, it's great that everybody, little Jimmy gets a laptop, but everybody else has to bring their own pen that they have to buy. And so what, from any member of the committee that's done this for years, and forgive me for being stupid, but what questions should the teachers ask the committee? Because I don't think, forgive me, I mean, yeah, we'd all love to win the lottery, but I don't think everyone's asking to win the lottery. They just want to know what they need to do to hold on to their jobs to teach the kids. At UConn right now, I am bewildered that I am told I'm supposed to teach 300 more students in a classroom next year. Like that's blowing my mind.
So what you're saying is true
To,
that
like, what questions should they bring to the committee? Because these people have generously given us their time tonight.
everything that has been cut is affecting our students, but it also affects our teachers.
Yep.
Whether it's lack of support in the classroom because we don't have our tutors, whether it is supplies, we're trying to restore site budgets. This year, we really had to cut back, and that does affect teachers. I was one for many years. We've always spent money. And when I heard that they were paying for some of their science supplies, I had one of our STEM coordinator find out, what does it take to pay for these science supplies, $5,000 per school in the elementary. We put it in the budget. But I am afraid that if I get this next cut, I don't know what we'll have to give. There's going to be programmatic changes, there's going to be supplies, there's going to be staffing, and it's too much. But if I can orient you to this, because this helps to
I have that. I'm just like, I apologize that you have your back to this enormous crowd.
I know who they are though.
But I mean, they're here and everybody's hungry and they want to go home. And so it's like, it's a long day. And so just knowing how to ask the right questions helps all of us in the state of Connecticut.
Thank you for that. I'm anxious to hear the rest of the presentation.
Sorry, excuse me.
That's all right. I understand that you really want to know how this is affecting teaching and learning every day in the classroom. And absolutely, we're going to get to that when you see some shocking things that would have to give if this budget doesn't go through. So if you just look on the right-hand side, the percent increases, boy, does that employee benefit, that healthcare stand out at 34.98. That is a huge driver and everybody knows it. Everything else, the supply cost is up because of the lack of the DoD and the technology. Equipment's down, dues and fees are down, but that tells kind of the story of what we're dealing with right now. And I'll move right along. The next page we can go through quickly. That's the 10 million I was talking about that's come through in the name of education on behalf of the board, on behalf of the town council, and we'll move right along. No, that's all right. I understand. Yeah, that's all right. Thank you. And then this is the per pupil spending. When you ask about people wanting to move to Groton, buy a house, education is the main driver. People come to a community and education is one of the #1 things that they're looking for. And how much we spend per pupil matters. And if you look at this sheet, which shows our local district, see the Connecticut average at about $19.7 thousand per student. And you see Groton is at 17.9, and this was as of 22-23. So we get the results kind of the year from the year before. And then the next one shows us our DIRG. And in our DIRG, that's our district reference group. It's really based socioeconomically and very light district too. So the DIRG average is 19.4. And we're at 17.914, and we only beat out Naugatuck as the least amount per pupil spending. So that really takes you through the overview. I'd like to kind of orient you to these other two pages, which go back to my statement that $7 million has already been taken. It's the one with the yellow highlight there. And if you look at the yellow highlight page, that's all the personnel. And you can kind of read through the many staff members that have already been reduced at the tune of $5,321,814.67, 124.9. If you look at the other side, that's all the supplies. When you talk about teaching and learning, it's people and the things we need to run our classroom. And you can see that there, and this is also non-personnel, there are efficiencies and reductions. So the bus transportation is in there. We have, we will no longer be purchasing food. You know, we sometimes will give coffee and muffins, but Ernie Kashmir, who runs our enterprise fund, is doing it gratis for us next year through the enterprise fund, so that the board doesn't have to pay for it. So we're doing some nice things strategically to offset costs that have been typically done. There is some professional learning that is being offset. Part of Project O, which is one of our partners, and I hate to lose some of the funding for that. But there is some funding in another grant, but it's not the full amount that we need. And then you see professional materials and SPED educational supplies and textbooks and software and technology, consultant. And, you know, we certainly added back the right to read. We need that. We need those resources. The teachers need those resources. And then the HVAC testing at 180,000, we have to test, and then we don't know what we'll find, and we don't know what we'll have to pay after that. But we need to do this because we plan on going for a grant for HVAC. And then we need to go to the town to ask them to commit to it, because they need to pay it in full to get the 58% reimbursement. So that's a speed drill through that, but it kind of gives you a flavor for what's already been done. And on the next page, these are things that were heart-wrenching. You know, I had the admin council and I had the Board of Ed take a look, and there wasn't one thing on this list that we want to give up. But I just thought, if you saw the kinds of things, it's programmatic. And I've actually kind of said to the community, this is things like athletics, and kids come to school for athletics. I mean, it's a big part of their life. Clubs. We have tremendous enrichment programs after school, clubs, athletics at every level, middle school and high school especially. And I just can't imagine life without those things. Also, you know, every department, if you notice, there's custodial, maintenance, there's admin, there's central office staff, there's site budgets, there's professional development resources, summer school. And summer school used to be something students had to pay for until those, you know, till really we started getting grants for summer school and summer programs at the elementary and middle school level. And now with our ESSER, you know, going away, we've got it paid for in this year's budget and next year's, but it might be one of those things we'd have to lose, and then kids would have to pay to attend, pay to play sports, maybe pay to play, you know, at STEM camp. So, and there's an equity issue there. I'm just warning you. That's not a good thing to do. Transportation we've looked at, and we're looking at our policy, and more kids might have to walk, because within our policy, it says you have within a mile, and you can walk. So there might be fewer bus stops. They might have more hub-like stops to take care of that. I worry about that too, though. And then there's some certified staff, and there's enrichment field trips, music, possible music reduction, and music in this, you know, we are STEAM, and that means STEM and the arts. And if you've ever been to one of our musical performances with little children, with middle schoolers, with high school, this is something that brought me to tears when I had to go through this, really, literally. And then this pre-K TK program, you know, it includes staff members and aides, but they're staff members and aides that I need, you know, going forward. And so this program is going to be so wonderful. We had over 100 parents come out to a K night. And when I told them that each one came and thanked us because no other district is doing it like this. Some are because New London has said they were going to do it, but they're facing some of the same things that I'm facing. So I just wanted you to kind of take a look at that. It's got some of the impacts, all of these things, everything on these 2 pages impact our students. And that's kind of where I want to leave it because I know that I want our board to be able to speak to this. They speak to it, but these are crushing cuts. It's devastating. After 10 years of building this district, I feel like this one move, if we don't have RTM restore this budget fully, we still owe 1.25. For nurses, we still have to cut something to get that unless we can really convince the town council that that money was in their budget and was expected to come to take care of our students in nurse, and their health care. So I'm going to stop talking so others can talk.
Well, actually, just a clarifying question. Just want to make sure the numbers that you passed around, these are the cuts, the reduction of staff and expenses that would be necessary to go from a Board of Ed approved budget number down to the town council. I think plus added nurses. I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, so almost everything on this page, and I couldn't even get to the 2.8 million, to tell you the truth. I had to stop. There was no way. So I couldn't even reach it there. So it would be just, I think it's an impossible feat, and it would just really affect our students. It would affect those teachers that are sitting back there and their administrators in a big way. And like I said, it takes a lot of care. It's academics, but it's social emotional. It's really taking care of some basic needs in our community. We have 54% free and reduced lunch, 54% students of color, all kinds of diverse needs. And it's the school that's the heart and the hub of any community. We know our kids. When people talk about homeless, those are our students, and they're living sometimes in hotel rooms with 2 beds, 1 room, and 6 people. And they have a microwave and a refrigerator. And it's our schools that have pantries, and they have prom dresses, and they have coats and jackets. And Denise Doolittle, who oversees McKinney-Vento, to make sure that those families' needs are taken care of. So with all of that being said, it is so important that we don't put obstacles in the way of equity. And I'm telling you, there's not one thing on this page, and there's nothing else in this budget. There's nothing else. My board will tell you, because they have done a most amazing job this year trying to uncover everything. They have worked tirelessly, not only in meetings, behind the scenes, asking questions, doing their own research after hours. So I just, I can't commend them enough, and they know the story. So that's all I'm going to say, unless you need me.
Thank you. Well, I'll figure out who's next, but thank you for putting not just in terms of numbers, dollar signs, but in terms of positions, people. And thank you all for coming here. I can see by the sea of red, unless that's an incredible coincidence.
Red.
Yeah, thank you all for coming, and the great service of work you do. It's a profession of dedication, and you don't often get thanks, I know, but in the long run, you can look back and see that the children you've taught have progressed and matured and grown largely because of you. Thank you. Let's see, we have many hands. I thought maybe we could go to either, I don't know, someone.
I have a short answer. So you asked about the town council number of and how the nurses fit into that. Long story short, the lower number that was passed by the town council represents a 6% increase. So if you back the nurses out of that number, it represents basically a 4.5% increase. So we are committed to the nurses, by the nature of what's happened with the VNA. So if the 6% number would pass, which thank you for making the motion for the 7.9 number. That would obligate us to cut further, and that's what these sheets represent. And as the superintendent noted, we didn't even make the mark on that. So, you know, it is hard to dig that deep, and you're basically asking not just for an arm or a leg, but both. So I would again recommend the 7.9 number. But yeah, the 1.28 or was it 1.3 roughly for the nurses would be included in that lower number, and we'd be obligated to pay that, and it would further diminish our ability to provide for students and staff.
Thank you.
This, Andrea.
It was me. I just wanted to say that I don't think the teachers have thought about it, all of this in the terms that you have. You opened my eyes, and I spent 30 years in the classroom. So,
Want to address the teachers because they're.
oh no, I know,
They've got very wide eyes. They have definitely thought about it.
well, I don't think they thought about it in the terms that you have presented. And now I will turn to the teachers because I was going to do that. However,
You might need your microphone.
I'm sure they have.
Matthew will help.
I'm definitely sure they have. There's no teacher in the room.
Hang this.
Thought about this.
oh no, I don't think that you thought about it in exactly the terms
Alexis.
that Alexis has presented. She opened my eyes as a teacher. When you go home tonight, what you need to do is get out an index card and write that one thing you heard Susan's voice crack. Write that one thing in specific. And I'm talking about physically specific. That makes your voice crack. That's what the town council needs to do. And only you. That's your assignment.
My voice cracked before. This has brought me to tears. I'm gonna get it for us.
Question. I'd like to address your question, and it may not be out of, and maybe out of place because I'm not a teacher. But if I were a teacher, and the question I would be asking is, in order for me to get my merit increase and my health benefits and support my family, it comes at the cost of the students that I'm serving. So that's the question I'd be asking, because basically the 7.9% increase, about 7.5% of it roughly is our committed merit increases and increases in health. And I don't know if you guys can sort of see that, but when I'm looking at numbers, that's a majority of the increase as demonstrated by one of the slides in Susan's presentation. I don't have the number, but if you look at it that way, that's what it is. And then you're wondering what's the other 3 or 4%? It's transportation to get those kids to school. So if you're going to ask us to cut another $2.8 million so that they can get their merit increase, their benefits, and transportation to the kids, we are going to have to cut programs, and that's all. That's what I would be asking, at what it costs.
Go ahead, I'll refer to him.
My grandson gave me a box of candy called Now and Later. And I'm thinking of the impacts now and later. Let's take a look at pre-K and transition K. We see the economic impact, the savings that we would get by cutting or reducing the program. But what's the cost now and later? The cost now is the impact on the kids now, the ones who'll be coming into the program in the next year or two. But that's not the only impact. The advantage of these transition K in kindergarten is that when we have somebody who has some difficulty in reading or some processing or some perhaps undiagnosed deficit, whether it's physical or emotional or cognitive, we catch it when they're in transition or pre-K. We can provide the services then, and we avoid the extraordinary costs of special education later. So if we were forced to remove this item, we might save, in quotes, some money this year. But boy, that can is going to get heavier and heavier and heavier. It's not a free ride. Thank you.
I was looking through the list of different things that have increased. Healthcare provider, I don't know if that's something that we looked at. You may have to change that.
We're already researching that for sure. Yeah.
These state mandates, of course, you know, those are going to have to be reevaluated. And probably have some people working on that, we'll see. The minimum wage, that's a tough one because you want to have people that can live.
And even that isn't enough.
Right. That's correct. The utilities, I know when they did the school project years ago, it was projected to do new types of energy in the school system. That's kind of in a process right now. And
Yeah, we have 2 buildings that have solar panels and we're looking at a 3rd.
great.
Yep.
And then the DOT, I already commented on that. And then, of course, the unfunded mandates. So then you are left with cutting first the staffing and then into the program. The problem is kind of like what was said tonight, you know, maybe now or maybe later type of thing. We're in a really, really difficult situation. When the schools referendums were voted on, this was going to happen because the schools were in such disrepair from the last 50 years. We really are kind of in a situation that we want to go that deep, and we are going to have some deep results of that, and the kids are going to suffer. And I do not want to add money back into this budget. However, after looking at the deep cuts tonight, I'm very, very concerned about it. I come from a teaching, writing background, healthcare, banking, all of it. This was a lot of cuts.
It
And
is.
I had a little mini survey in my neighborhood and everyone said, oh, don't add money back in. And I was going to come here tonight. I was going to support that exact figure that the council had. I thought it was, you know, to keep it low. But now looking at this is a disaster.
It's a
This is
disaster.
a disaster. Just like when projects happen in your neighborhood, the disaster, nobody's listening. We won't go into that tonight. So I am going to probably be bombarded with both sides, but I think I'm going to actually make a motion, keep the motion that we had on the floor at this point.
Thank you. I was wondering if there are any questions for the RTM member. Actually, I might speak this anyway, but my next question is for you. I had a recent Board of Ed meeting and very succinctly described the health insurance challenges that are facing not just the school system, but the town as a whole. It's just the school employees.
I want to make just a quick note about the transportation, because I know that the superintendent made it clear that this was it, but I still have people that come to me and say, well, why didn't you negotiate a better transportation contract? Why didn't you, force, lower rates? As you know, the policy is bidding, and only 2 companies in the state bid on this contract. And so we had no choice but to accept this. So I just want to make sure that that's totally understood. In terms of the healthcare, we've made a promise to our employees to provide them with healthcare. Years ago, our bargaining units transitioned to HSA plans because this was going to save huge amounts of money and save the system. But now we're faced with sharp increases in claims. We all know why. And while the system was spinning off reserves in good times, and we were using those to make sure that the taxes were not going up, those 5 years of zero, that we had, the year 2.2, we were prudently applying the excess reserves over and above our corridor to make sure that we would be good stewards for the schools and for the taxpayer. However, claims have risen dramatically, and there's also this new thing people may or may not have heard of called lasering, where we have this reinsurance policy that when a claim goes over 200,000, stop loss insurance kicks in, except now insurance companies can say, well, we are not going to allow the stop loss on these two claims. And they're then allowed to rise to 400,000. This kicked in last year. We had one, but the policy allows for two. We have been fortunate that this year it has not. However, we've only had claims through February. We have to get through June 30th with our health insurance. And it's like a sword of Damocles over us this year and next for these lasered claims. We're paying all this money for stop loss insurance, but the insurance company gets to pick a couple out that it doesn't kick in over little. I just hope that people understand that, and that we are, first of all, our teachers and our staff have met us halfway with going with this new high deductible health plan, but even now that isn't working. And so we will end up potentially having to cut programs and people further than we already have, because we're keeping our promise to the employees.
Thank you. And it's the 34% increase, I think. Last year's budget, this year's for
For the healthcare.
I gather that probably wasn't anticipated. Is there any projection for, or is it even, can you even project for next year? What it would be like?
It's really one of those, I mean, most of these things were unforeseen. There was no crystal ball. I mean, none of us really knew about this inflationary time and some of the things we're faced with. But it's definitely extraordinary. I think there were 3 months that were the highest months that we've seen in years, just this year. And so, they've got to be taken care of, and that's just the way it is. Yeah.
We're in a plan with the town, and when this, it's a self-funded plan. So that means that it isn't this huge pool, like an Anthem pool. We are a small group. A few large claims can really throw that pool off. And we do use a consultant, and they make their best estimate, but again, you can't predict healthcare. And so that really, Councilor McBride mentioned, this is all about healthcare. If it weren't for the healthcare, you'd be coming in with a very modest request this year. But healthcare is driving it. And one could argue that over the years, when we were prudently using the reserve to make sure that our increases were low and taxes were not going up, and the town wasn't dipping into their reserve, that we were contributing to that. Some people don't like it if we call the reserve a rainy day fund, but others do call it a rainy day fund. And as Jen White has mentioned, it's boring. So,
do you have a sense of what the reserve level is right now? I know it's complicated, but not a new number at this moment. Just a sense, are there still reserves?
We've asked that of the town, but they have not been able to really give it to us. But I know that there was $1.5 million in the reserve, and we've had to use some of that with these extra excess costs. So when it gets down to the corridor, and we think it's down there to the corridor, it's serious. You really don't, we've been told to go down to the corridor in the past, but we have never done that. We've always had the health reserve. So, it is something we're just monitoring ever so closely right now.
and when we talk about corridor, that's 25% over claims. And so that is a number that moves. As your claims experience goes up, that 25% quarter number goes up. And so,
I'll just restate, and I know we're talking about the numbers of healthcare, but we are employing people, and teaching and education is a taxing profession on health in many ways,
Mhm.
physical and mental, psychological. And so if we're going to employ people, we are.
That's absolutely right. Thank you.
And I mean, we need to be in touch. I'm actually gonna probably make a call, this week to, probably the Lieutenant Governor, talk to her about this. How we can try to control some of these costs, because this is gonna get to the point where the towns are just not gonna be able to afford it. The other part of that is, with the transportation costs, when this was going to happen, when the schools were consolidated, which the schools have done a great job in their programs, and that's very important because we've seen improvement that way, and more people getting further along in their work life. So, you know, it's one of those situations. I'd like to find out if we go with this figure, and what is the actual increase per month going to be for the average homeowner? I think there were some quotes in the paper on that, because I have to go back and justify to people that this is going to be done.
I would say that at this stage in the budget game, like in RTM, we can't estimate the tax increase. But I just remember that the taxes are not the only way to pay for things.
Mhm. That's right.
So there are.
And they are healthy right now.
And it's better to plan to have a little extra, so you have to have it, than to go and have that trying to do this.
Anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Just a few things. I'm not sure if you're asking about the reserve for the healthcare, or if we're talking about the reserve for the town.
I was actually asking about the healthcare. I'd like to keep it mostly to the education budget. If you want to mention some context,
Well,
it just did come up.
precisely. I mean, I think it's important to keep things in context and look at the scope of the whole situation. And as the chair just mentioned, over the past 5, 6, 7, up to 10 years, the Board of Education budget has been very, very low increase. And over that time, there has been some strategic withdrawals from the reserve fund. However, over that same period of time, if you look at the town's website, there is an account for the general fund and the general fund balance, which is the excess money that the town holds in reserve for its own operations. And since 2017, the general fund balance was roughly about floated between 7.75% and 10%. And over the past 7 years, that fund balance has now expanded over 22%. And I believe there's another $2.2 million going in there from some excess revenues and reimbursements that are attached to the school. So we're looking at about $38 million as a fund balance that the town has increased over the past 7, 8 years that we've, and speaking collectively, I wasn't on the board in those years, but that the board has kept low increases. So while the healthcare reserve funds have been diminishing. So if you look at it from a sort of a 20,000 foot view, you can see a bit of a transfer happening where our reserves are dwindling and the general fund balance is increasing. So as the chair of the education committee noted, there are, and former mayor kind of noted in her communication, there are other ways to pay for these increases this year. So it's not all directly connected to taxes. And I will email this around the committee and the RTM at large, but it is staggering to see the town council did pass a policy to increase their fund balances at 15%, and that's their expectation. And they say that's for bond ratings and things like that. but we are well over that amount now, even still. So, as the chair and my colleague, Ms. White, had mentioned, you know, the rainy day fund, it's not just so much that it's raining, it's storming, and the town council is attempting to lock us out of the house.
Thank you. So, any questions from the
Well, this is gonna be interesting to see when this goes to the RTM. There'll probably be a bit of debate on this, of course. I just think that we need to bite the bullet this year, because if we don't do it this year, it's gonna come back next year, and we don't know what's gonna happen next year with more funding. So if we plan ahead now, we may have some in the reserve, and we're not gonna have to do this all over again next year. It's gonna be very, very tough. It's not gonna be pleasant. I'm gonna have to pay more possibly on my mortgage. I'm not happy about it. But I really do feel that this is very deep. These are very deep cuts, which I have to kind of commend you for coming to the table and to the Board of Ed earlier, because a lot of times budgets are not cut quite this quickly. So by looking at this and what I've seen in the past, these are really big cuts, and they are going to severely affect the children, the teachers, and the whole program, and whether Groton is going to flourish or not. And I'm tight with the budgets, but I think we really need to do it. It's very difficult. I'd like to, if anyone has anything else to say, I'd like to move the question. If those, I'll take it back. Go ahead. Retract it. I don't think we'll be soon. That's supposed to be, yeah, go ahead.
I'll say for full openness, then I have to look at the procedure.
Okay, no, right.
And
I retracted. Good.
And I'm always in favor of having the debate run its course. So if I would have to look at the procedure really quick. So we've talked about teachers, of course. We heard that first people cost, which is lower than just about everywhere.
Everywhere.
No matter how you compare it. It's been that way for quite some time. I'd like to turn the focus to the students, but also to sort of the budget context, because I have been on the RTM Education Committee and the RTM for many years. And I got involved at the time when Pleasant Valley School was cut. There were further cuts. Some of them were restored through the activity of the community, local support the schools. But even then, climbing back up from that. Many years ago, so this these zeros were sort of tied to a concept called the minimum budget requirement. And so the class of funding that our district has got from the state, some of it at least, is called the Alliance District funding. And along with that, it kind of constrains, there are less situations where you could ever drop the budget lower than what it already is. So that's the minimum budget requirement. And I remember for the first couple of years of that, the pressure to stay at zero definitely came from outside of the Board of Ed and the school system. And that pressure was there because actually the projection at the time that our population, like many others in New England, were declining. And the age of the population was increasing. That has not come to fruition. As far as I can tell, and you can use the numbers about how many students we're educating at different levels. But if we never saw that decrease, it had increased, and it's been level for a couple of years. And so given the context of what we all know just on a personal level, it's transportation does go up. It is more expensive to drive somewhere. Healthcare is more expensive for all of us. If you employ people, or if you're employed or both, you know that hopefully wages are going up. And that's a benefit and a pressure, because guess what? All the prices are going. So it seems to me, if we're educating at least as many people, students, as we always have, and we can expect growth from like both and other areas, there's definitely housing pressures, then I don't know why concern about like setting a new minimum budget requirement. We shouldn't worry about, because we're going to have more students. Costs are going to go up. That's a reality. Over time, there's been sort of the state funding and the federal funding hasn't always gone up in pace with this. So the town share has gone up, but the need for our students, the need for our schools is always going to be there. And this is what it takes to invest in the country's future in our town. And that has, beyond dollar signs, that has great benefit. And I think we are talking about numbers, but I just wanted to bring it back to that for a moment. And you all could speak to that much better than
I could just make a quick comment about Alliance. I heard the terminology Alliance funding, and I just want to make it clear to everyone that even though the original Alliance districts in the state actually did get additional funding, the last 3 districts added to the Alliance, including Groton, did not come with any funding except in the first year, which I believe was on the order of.
The first year we received 600,000.
Yeah.
And last year was the last year we received anything, and I think it was 100,000. So it was diminishing, but I think the thing that we did get was the ECS at that $26 million. And that was really, they tried to graduate us because we did have 2 blue ribbons and all schools of distinction in like 6-year period. But I have to say that we didn't allow that. The representatives helped me with that, and we wrote we wrote to our legislators, and they really kept us on for another 5 years.
So we're not getting some large amount of Alliance funding like the original Alliance districts, but we are being held harmless from any decrease to the ECS. Keep in mind, ECS has been the same to Groton for
10 years, I think.
More than 10 years.
More than 10 years.
And that's the same in dollar amount, not the same in which
That's
real
correct.
value.
Thanks, Dean.
Another question. This is actually it's a detail-oriented question, and it's just one line item. It's in the educational supplement. It's 2-5. It's within, so the backdrop to that is we've been talking a lot about healthcare, because if you look at what's driving the budget, it's much of it, 37%. It's gone up by 34%. But then supply is actually up quite a bit. And so I wanted to ask about that, and the way of asking specifically about that is on 2-5, the education supplement, budget supplement. It's the, I guess it's either the code or category 180 software. If I'm reading this correctly, that one item has gone up $620,397. I don't know what that is for.
So within DoD, we bought hardware and software. So this was the cost, because we don't have that DoD coming in. And a lot of our softwares, I think this is more for the instructional software, but a lot of those are, 1-2 year agreements, sometimes 3-year agreements, and they're really meant for teaching and learning and supporting our students and, giving our teachers the resources they need. Textbooks, while we still have some textbooks, a lot of them are digital, and a lot of times we do use computer software now as a resource, as a main resource for our students' learning.
We were using the DoD supplemental. It wasn't exclusive, it was for our technology fund. And that also includes, I don't know if you saw anything with the town council. Last year, telephone was at 0, and the reason for that was that it was coming out of DoD supplemental because it's a voice over IP system now, and therefore technology. But because we're losing the DoD supplemental grant, then all of that has to come back into the operating budget.
And so that the DoD grant, that's about, typically sort of using about 500K, maybe some more sometimes because you have built up a balance.
Right, we had built up a balance,
And so.
yeah, but now we've really spent it. Yeah.
You're speaking.
Also added to the budget, investment in our budget software going forward. I believe it was in that.
We did add that also. That's probably what that is also. We really wanted to have a better system. Our business manager had noted, he had come from Hartford Public Schools, and he had noted that this is the one that we're using is really not efficient. And so did our board members say that we wanted something that was better, that we could really see more clearly and really have a better budget process with that and a better handbook to use. So the software is really a good place to start with all of that for budgeting.
But the software you're talking about is mostly for that, or?
It's both. It's got both. It's got both the instruction and it's got the business piece too.
Yeah, could you give some examples, say, the educational software that's paying for that, some of that might get cut?
Sure. Yeah, some of it is a lot of support work. We use a program like Dreambox that teachers use to allow kids to go online and increase their learning and supplement their learning in mathematics for identified areas of need. We really, I will also say that we've done a thorough software survey with our staff, knowing that we needed to make some cuts, and we wanted to keep what our teachers truly wanted. We were listening to the teachers' voices to really find out what is working best for our students. The Mystery Science is another software that is used, which provides a variety of different resources to supplement science instruction, which allows teachers to sort of plan different activities, whether it's whether it's videos, whether it's providing materials for kids at different levels of literacy levels for kids. It's just another way for kids to access the materials and gain interest. So we're mindful of cost. A lot of these softwares, as we all know, are just not cheap. A lot of them sort of came in during COVID. They were granted us
Free.
for free.
They were free.
But as we know, then they become ingrained in our system, and then the price increases. So we're very mindful that we're constantly reviewing what's working, and the big piece for me on my end is not just looking at what people like to use, but we want to look at what's effective with our kids. Are we getting the intended outcome from our students?
And how well is it being used?
Right. So
Usage.
So we're monitoring its uses in your classroom. We're monitoring the data that comes back from the software, and we're making decisions based on that. So I can assure you the stuff that's in the budget right now is what we deem is most effective for our students, and that's going to be continued to be analyzed as we move forward.
Thank you. You mentioned certainly math literacy and science literacy. I assume there's reading literacy, and I was wondering if that's connected to the new state mandated changes to reading program.
Right. All the new programs that the state has recommended and that we are reviewing include a component, an online component, both for the teachers, for their planning, and for the kids to access the materials. So that will be part of the program that we purchase.
And you might say that we have the 300,000 in there.
Right now, yeah, our board has provided 300,000 for that. Most of those programs, that will cover, the programs that we are currently reviewing fall in that spending limit. But anybody who takes some time to investigate these programs would know that many of them that we have deemed not sufficient for our kids are much more expensive than that. So we're confident that we have what we need to move forward and make that decision.
And there'll be books, and there'll be
But not the town council number.
no, not with the cut.
Right.
And I just want to make a quick point about Jen had mentioned the budget software. Over the years, Councilor Portolon, who supported our budget on council, has asked us to make this budget more understandable, transparent. Unfortunately, given the systems we have, it's a challenge. Board Member Thomas also has really pushed for that. And while it is a small item, I think it's very important that it makes it more clear for those leadership positions in the town and the taxpayers to see where the money's going. And so that's why I thought that was important to educate the
I personally would value that. And
Yes.
Always strongly transparency, but also point out that being here and explaining things, not just here, but at other meetings through this budget cycle really helps back. Very grateful.
When the town council made the cuts, were there any particular suggestions by the council? I didn't get to see that when you were working on what the cuts would be. No, I'm just curious if there was any.
And to be fair to the council, so it was a reduction in our request. You know, nobody's gonna go below the MVR, but you can't stay at a static number forever, as Chairman Whitney has pointed out, based on the inflationary pressures. But I don't recall there being a specific area.
And a follow-up to that, and if we were to go with a higher figure and recommend it, then the RTM went lower or a lot lower. I know you have your list here of cuts, but what do you foresee would be, if say it's 500,000 or $1 million cut, where would you cut? Do you think, do you foresee that you would cut? Yeah, like all areas or not?
Well, I think that would be up to the board to work on that, but it would, like I said, we couldn't even really go any further than what we did. And even every single item that's on here, none of us would want to see happen.
Right.
And this community would not want to see it happen. They would be letting you know. Because if it affects programs, whether it's early childhood, whether it's STEM, whether it's the arts, athletics, music, these are things people care about here. Groton is like amazing when you think about it. Not only the beauty that from the Thames River to the Mystic River, but just the richness of the arts and what we have around us. And our students flourish in this environment. We don't want to see any of this happen.
And I owe, I'm sorry. I owe an apology to Kim Drellich of the day. She did ask whether we made any decisions last night. I want to make it clear to everybody. We were kind of uncomfortable. I was kind of uncomfortable about discussing this and having it go online because it has two aspects to it. We didn't approve any of these cuts, but we also don't want to scare people. We didn't say we're cutting football. You know what I mean? We didn't do anything that was like crazy. These unfortunately are what we may be forced to do, but we haven't decided that. But we also don't want to put fear into people, and that's what's unfortunate about if somebody identifies with one of these things, it might put fear in them. That's why I was concerned about last night's meeting, to be honest with you. But and again, not to put fear, but if it goes that much further, we could see the unwinding of the magnet school program in town and everyone returning to a neighborhood school. And just think of what would happen if all of those students were redistricted. Nobody wants to see that. We have a wonderful program which has allowed students choice and parents choice, magnet choice, school choice, and the town, has supported that for years. It also allows for better equity because, as Member Thomas has pointed out, our neighborhoods are not
Heterogeneous.
diverse. So, but our schools are, and that's because people have a choice to go to other schools. And so if we unwound that, get back to those warnings from the state about our issues.
And that's what the Groton 2020 was. And that's what this community did. They came together, they built that school on the hill, Groton Middle School, could have been a little bigger. We're really cramped in there. I see a new addition someday, but I feel like that's what this community did. And then they built two new elementary schools. And guess what? Our schools basically mirror this community. We came in with schools that were 90% this, 10% that, you know, and now they're like 54% to about 60-something%. And I think one of the schools is still in the 40% range of socioeconomics. And when we balance socioeconomics, Dr. Rick Kallenberg came to this district and talked to us about what that would achieve. It achieves equity and it raises everybody up. And that's what we've seen. So I'm telling you.
Prior to that, if I can be recognized by the chair as an active district member, as a town councilor.
I'm not gonna recognize you, though I do recognize you. Thank you. Because just keeping it meant to the members or ex officio members of the RTM Education Committee. And like everyone else, I encourage you wholeheartedly.
Yes.
Yes, I will be.
And thank you for your service to the town, for sure. And I just want to say that you mentioned what I see, and these are not cuts that are approved, just some discussion points, just because you've got to prepare for contingency. This is an earnest, balanced sort of deep cuts through the system that would be wrenching for the teachers, the staff, and it would affect every aspect of the students' educational experience. And remember, their educational experience is most of the waking hours of their life, really, this time of year. So it's a huge effect on life.
And as Mr. Schulman said, now and later. It's not just for 1 year, it's for this year and it's into the future.
I'd love an opportunity to give you some more now and laters on this list if you let me at some point.
I've never cared for that, Andy.
Neither do I, but it's a great.
It's a great analogy.
But and the other point is, and I think you made this, is that you know, we can't skip a year, I don't think, in terms of the budget and wait for next year. I know no one's education is skipping for sure. I just have one last question, just to make sure I've got this right. So I have watched, I think, all of the and my understanding that the town council rationale, it was governed by you know, a fiscal responsibility concerns about raising the overall budget. And I hear that. But I believe when that motion for their lower number was made, that it was, I think I said maybe a 4.5 increase from last year, which is lower than the number of people, plus the money for the school nurses. And just as a comment, I will say that the Public Works Department, for example, I haven't gone through the whole budget yet. The town council approved a 6.7% increase for them. And so that's a smaller budget item, but it's still about $7 million in terms of their budget, their entire budget. So that's roads. I value them. I value education. I can drive over bumpy roads. I want to meet people that can realize their full potential in Groton. So I do always value education more. And for the nurses, though, that part that they added on, for an explanation, this is my understanding that the town council had in its budget a budget item on the town side, because in the past it's been the Visiting Nurses Association, as you explained. They said around January that they're not continuing to be in the school. Nurses getting as astounded by that, but I can understand that. That's a decision. And the town council or the town budget, the code was 108411 school nurses. And that intent was if you could get another contractor, a contractor to provide to nurses. That amount was $1,346,573. That was in the manager's budget, and it was zeroed out. And as all this is unfolding, our January budget process, the annual budget process starts before that. And so to my knowledge, that's one place in the whole budget on the town side is the only place where school nurses have a number, had one. Now that number is 0. What I want to ask you on the Board of Ed side, I looked through the budget. It's a long one. It could be a little clearer, but I can follow the numbers. I couldn't see a line for school nurses. So I was wondering if the board, for the annual budget process, has it somewhere in the budget that I'm missing, because right now I find $0 in the approved town council budget for school nurses, something that we're required for. It just would not be right to not have for our town.
So there was a misunderstanding that because it was in the town budget, I was under the impression, understanding that the school nurse line would be transferred over to the Board of Ed if we ended up hiring nurses on top of our budget number. At the time that we submitted our budget, which the deadline was February 28th, that we have to get our budget in, we were in negotiation with another agency that my understanding was would be funded through the town. It turns out that in March, we were unable to do that. And so now we're forced, really by law, to have nurses, obviously. And so that's when offers were made to nurses. And what I didn't understand is that the 1.3 million I thought would be added on to the RTM final number, but it was actually added in during the town council lower number. The upshot of that is that even if you fully restore us, we will be 1.3 million short for paying for the nurses, because it won't be added on top of your budget. It was added in the interim budget number. So that's a misunderstanding on my part. I take full responsibility for that misunderstanding. That when we said that it would go on top of the budget, I thought we were talking about the final budget, not the interim budget.
But all this came after you guys had approved the budget.
Right, it did.
Well, yes, because we thought we were going to be using another agency, but unfortunately things broke down with that agency.
And we were working with the town on that, and there were many conversations. And it wasn't only Jay, there was a misunderstanding in my department too, that staff and I had worked with them. So, it's.
But I want to be very careful that we're not, mischaracterizing it. It was definitely a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And I would hope that there'd be a way that the town council can understand that the change is revenue neutral. In other words, it's been paid all those years by the town, that now the responsibility goes to the Board of Ed. But the function is the same. So I can only hope for that. But unfortunately, my understanding is that that's beyond the ability of RTM. I don't.
We shall see.
I don't.
But just as we get to the full RTM, I just want to make that clear that it's not in the Board of Ed budget. And it's just, sitting there for an hour in any school, and you'll know.
Yeah.
You go to many meetings and all that stuff.
We had been asked if school-based health could suffice, and we really contacted school-based health, and they're a different entity, and they actually can collect insurance money, and parents have to sign up. It's a wonderful service. It's in all of our schools with social workers and healthcare. Like I said, we are the community hub. We take care of our kids in every way, but they are not a school nurse. School nursing is quite different. You need really both. So school nurses and those health aides that we have are really, like you said, necessary by law and also by health.
And I'll point out, and you can articulate this better than I do. School nurses, we sort of all have an idea of some of the things they do, but they're also in, for instance, special education meetings and involved in other school decisions. So I've never felt with our school system or any school system that they had too many nurses, too much school.
That's right.
School-based health centers. The demand is always going to be high, particularly.
I will share my hope, and that's all it is. Perhaps it's the board's, but I'll share my hope. If we're able to restore, whether or not we restore the budget, the town budget anticipates a 6% increase in our budget. And then there's the problem we have that it's not really 6% in operational funds for us because we've got to deduct 1.3 million for the nurses. But if we got the full 7.9% and the council in its wisdom decided that since they had a 15% mandate for reserves, but had actual reserves of in excess of 22%, that they could use some of that rainy day money to cover the nurses, it would not affect the MBR because they've already made the commitment to the 6% gross figure. So they would be able to use some reserves, cap the MBR at the level that they wish, and we would all be a lot happier and our budget would not have to be cut more drastically.
Thank you. And within this committee, and actually within the RTM for this budget line, our maximum is your board of budget. I just wanted to recognize that if the school nurses indeed are that this budget code, that still is $1,346,573.
Yeah.
Well, that was budget from the other. That's an additional burden that was unplanned for.
It was unplanned.
In a budget that was produced by the superintendent first and went through extensive deliberations and consideration.
Mr. Whitney, I wonder if I could say something. I don't know how to do this.
Legal.
I'm not going to stand up this time because it has to do something. As I listened to everybody tonight, I heard two aspects of our budget: quantitative and qualitative. William Bennett, in his book, the Book of the Virtues, says that we pass on as our civilization through stories. So because I'm a teacher, I'm going to tell you a story. A long time ago, I was at a dinner with friends who had another couple who were moving from Maine to Groton, to this area. And the father listed the towns that they were looking at, and Groton was not among them. And I asked him why. And he said, we will never, ever buy a Groton. I said, why? He said, because they don't spend enough on children. As I listen to what we want to cut, it sounds as though it's all quantitative. However, his response is qualitative. And that I'm speaking to taxpayers now. That's why our taxes will go up. And now I'm going to ask you to do something that's qualitative. And I'm hoping that Christina will do this.
Your student, for God's sake.
I had her in class. Well,
You got the K, you got the K, you're good.
I was telling somebody who I walked in with this evening that I have blue gold. There's been a way with murder. So remember what that means. And if you would turn to the person sitting next to you, look at them. The child of that father who will never buy in love is not going to look at each other.
That's fine.
Person next to you have never experienced the expertise of that teacher sitting next to you. And that's more costly than anything.
Briefly, first of all, your analysis of the budget is outstanding. And I think if this goes before the RTM with a higher figure, the RTM can figure out other areas that you can adjust. And I'm not help the RTM, which that's not our job. Our job is to present what we feel is going to be the best, the district at the best cost and for the best quality, quantity and quality. And I just found that. Did a lot of papers on that. You hit it right on the head. And I want to compliment again, Board of Education, committee, everybody that came out tonight because you all care. And you know, in the past, I've been like very interested because we've had some budgets that have been really, really tough. And we recommended that whole referendum years ago, which that's why you have this now, because we said this is not good enough. So I think we need to get on that path and say, this is something we need to do. It's going to be very hard this year. We're going to have a lot of people, and I have to pay, we're going to have to pay possibly more of my mortgage. I want to see quality, quantity, quality. So I'd like to try it if anybody else has anything that I want to take your spot. Then I move it, or
You don't have to move it. Okay.
I have a question. Actually, I have a question, but I need someone's help who's good with math to help me with this. So maybe you could do this. I follow me here. The town council approved a 6% increase or a cut of 1.1%, correct? From the Board of Ed budget.
I'm not sure about
Okay.
percentage, but yeah, but okay.
Okay, what I want to know is what I'd like to do, because the town council cannot direct the Board of Education how to use their money. What I would like to do is add the 1.3% or 1.3 million that the VNA absence is estimated to be, and propose that percent increase. So I think it's around 7.1.
So what number are you trying to move a new number?
I'm trying to figure out what that number is and then move it.
So this number you're trying to ask
I want to add because the town council cannot dictate to the Board of Ed how their budget is, their money is spent.
1.533 was the difference of what the Board of Ed had, if the math is correct, without a calculator. The
1,533,306. That's the difference between the Board of Ed number and the town council. We're considering 87,903,484.
Okay, so what I would like to do, excuse me, what I would like to do is increase the 6%, which is the 86,425,178 by 1.3 million.
Do you want the exact number?
Yeah, because I'll have to make a motion.
Yeah, so we'll have to, what? So you can do one.
See, I'm not gonna add it.
Chairman Whitney.
Yes.
Just to point out, that's actually not legal per the charter. If that number were to actually pass the RTM, it would invalidate the number. You might end up with the original council number. The charter is very clear. You can't go beyond the higher of the manager or council. It would be thrown out.
Thank you, Town Manager Byrd. I think if I understand this correctly, what Representative Cheryl is seeking to move is basically the $1.3 million on top of the town council number, which is.
Yeah,
which
that's
is-
what you can't do. That's not allowed. The very highest cap is that 7.9. You cannot go beyond that.
Yeah, but I think it wouldn't be actually.
Yeah, I don't think.
So.
Well,
if-
the number on the table is the highest actual number you can go.
Correct. I think what Representative Fitzgerald, I don't mean that here, right? I think she's looking to add $1,346,573. Not teachers in the room, get that one. Plus $86,425,178, which is the town council number, which would come in lower than the number that we're considering right now.
That would be an additional cut to our budget.
But
We cannot afford.
But.
No.
That's what you
In my
want to do.
No,
don't
what
think-
the town council or whatever amount is given to the Board of Education. See, this is why I needed help with this, okay? Whatever amount is given to the Board of Education, no one can dictate to them what to use that money for. So I said, I'm trying to figure out if the 868,425,178 stays. Board of Ed uses it how they see fit. I would like to add the cost of roughly $1.3 million that is estimated to for the nursing on top of the 86,425,178.
Okay, I think that's fair. But maybe someone could just give you a calculator to come up. So the two numbers, these are the three numbers. Right now, we're considering $87,958,484. That's what's on the table. That's the maximum we can show. And the town council had approved $86,425,178. What they added on the town side for the school nurses, it was an account 108411 was $1,346,000. $1,346,573. And so those, I think those are numbers to be, and we'll just.
I believe it was 1246. The original cut was 13, but they Superintendent Austin thought there'd be $100,000 savings going to employees.
I've only got the number in the town budget to work with them.
Yeah, they cut 13, but I don't believe they did 13 adding into the Board of Ed. I think they did 1246.
I don't know where that number comes from.
We got a lot of math teachers doing that.
And maybe someone understands what I'm talking about here.
I think we're just.
Under. That number is still under.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to pay attention. Thank you. Go ahead.
So if I could just indulge for a second. You have on the floor of 87,958,484, which is the Board of Ed number. That's on the floor. It's been seconded. If you're going to do an amendment, or put a figure on the floor, the number that with your added to the other number is 87,717,51. Go ahead.
I just verified it was only 1246. What I gave it a spreadsheet to the council before the meeting, taking that 100,000 out at the advice earlier on of the superintendent. So it is 1246. 573. I've got the paperwork with me.
I still don't know where that number comes from. I don't know where my number comes from.
I can't.
So, Katrina, let me find it. It is in the town budget document. And what code is it? 108411. if you can find that, I really think that was the number I was reading out. I think it's on something like page, like 107-ish or something. No, maybe that's something else.
Yeah, the council reduced it by 100,000, putting it into the Board of Ed.
They reduced that count to 0. Is that correct?
They zeroed out the 1346,573, and then
So is that, did I have that number correct?
they
number count?
zeroed that, but they only added 1246,573 into the Board of Ed with the 4.5% increase.
Well, that was their rationale.
So
Yeah, I'm just saying it wasn't 13.4, right? I'm just making it clear. That's not what they did.
Mike, allowing for,
Just wondering if you've got your, shoot, what you want to do. Because we're going to have stuck in.
I think I have a number.
I think I'd like to hear, what,
So the number. You have the number on it, 7,950,484 red numbers. The number of 6,425,178 town council number. There's nothing on the floor that says that we're voting tonight.
Yeah.
So Robert's rules, I believe, would say if you want to add your number to that town council number, which isn't really presented yet, you'd have to add that to 86,425,178. If that number, which you're saying, and John Burke is saying, you need that number, which you want to add to that number, then you make the motion.
I understand the process. I'm
Yeah.
interested in the numbers.
That number, we need that exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Michael,
I'm just. I think that's.
I've done a calculation. Allowing for the possibility that I might have made an error in my math, which is extraordinarily possible. If we take the adding the 1,246,573 to the council's number would give us 87,671,751. Okay, and I might have found an error. And we compare that to our school, to what the board would like, a restoration of the full amount. This would result, by my calculations, of a lesser cut than the town council, but still a cut of just shy of $300,000.
I think what we're looking for here is.
If that's what,
It may well be, but I'm looking for a number.
yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. That's why
My concern is that the number that she's proposing,
I don't know what number it is.
well, just on the back of the envelope, it looks like it's less than 1%. And what is the definition of was?
Hey, these are big numbers.
Yeah.
So.
yeah,
But.
I'm
not real frivolous.
that is, I wanted to see if it was a compromise rather than a frivolous.
But so, yeah, anyway, I'm not gonna rule it as frivolous, but I don't know what the number is.
Matthew's number is correct, 876,71751. If you take the town council number plus the church number at 1.2 rather than 1.3, that's in the binder.
So that would be considered frivolous, because it's, I don't know what we are considering frivolous for the RTM.
I'm not right now considering anything frivolous to make the motion.
Okay, can you repeat that number again, please, Matthew? That's correct.
by my calculation, it would come out to 87,671,751.
570.
571.
Oh, wait, seven.
What is the education budget account number, please?
And it's 1080.
I would like to make an amended motion for account 1080 education of 87,671,700. What was it? 87,671,751.
If somebody would check my math, I'd really
I
appreciate
think
it.
Jen just did that. Yeah.
You're good.
Okay,
So that's 87 million. 671,000. 750.
751. Yes,
Will you hear a second? Okay, that's second. This sounds odd at this point, but can you justify your reasoning on that? Or
yeah, I'm trying to find a compromise number. I think since the town has paid for the VNA, it's just, they've been paying for the, school nursing portion of the VNA contract. And also considering that the Board of Education found out January, February, that the VNA was no longer going to continue.
January, yeah.
January. They have not had the time to find a new person to do it to fit their budget. And I don't think that that burden should be on the Board of Ed when they have not had what I would consider a sufficient amount of time to meet for school nursing.
Yes,
Worth a higher number.
So open it for discussion.
So I fully understand that ration. I'm sorry, was someone speaking?
Yeah, no, they were doing more.
Okay,
Speak.
okay, so
Mhm.
when I understand and appreciate the concerns of that person. We are in the middle of the meeting. So we are deliberating whether to go with the figure of the Board of Ed. We have a second figure. And I think that your intent is excellent. I think the town council's intent is excellent. However, we're in a real bind this year. I'm not criticizing. I believe we go with a higher figure. It's gonna be there, 300,000. We can find 300,000 on the RTM in another budget this year. This is really very major this year. We really can't put off children. We really can't do this. We have health codes we have to follow. We have insurance mandates, state mandates. We can't change those. Go with the higher figure. The RTM can deliberate the higher figure. And then at that point, if additional monies come in with the expertise of our staffing and the Board of Ed overseeing that, then those monies can possibly stay in that budget. For next year, this isn't going away. So it's horrible. We're gonna have to really bite the bullet. I'm not happy. Trust me, I do not want to pay more. My mortgage is could possibly go up. It's gonna be tough. But I really feel strongly about this, that we should do it this year. It's very, very important for people that do have mortgages, because some people will not be able to pay those mortgages. It's the right to the children, and that is very important. And we want to make sure that every person in the town of every age group is represented, including the children, the teachers, the healthcare workers, the entertainment employees, electric boat, not just a few. So we have to deliberate what is best for all in all areas. So that's why I would suggest supporting the higher figure, and I don't know why anybody would argue about it. So I think I'd like to move a budget.
I think we've had a discussion on that question. I'd also support the highest number we could go with for that number, and realize that if the nurses doesn't have to come out of that, that's also already a substantial cut. I wouldn't have ruled this on as still, because it is $286,733 lower than the number we've been before. That's a lot of money, and that's teachers, that's staff, that's supplies. That affects the school system too. So it's important to remember that even small percentage changes have big effects on the school system and the students themselves. So I will be voting against the amended number, and I'm definitely voting for the original number we considered. Any other thoughts from the RTM member?
I'd like to withdraw my amendment.
Second,
That's fine.
Okay.
It's not as big of a cut or an addition as the way I imagined it wasn't the same as the numbers came out. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's actually numbers we're getting
Conflicting.
numbers that were in the budget, numbers that came from town council reasoning or supply numbers, which we as a council, a committee can also have that at our ready access for sure.
And it was not higher than the Board of Ed budget, which I expected it to be.
So thank you, but you do, that amendment does draw out like the complexities here, right? And also, for me, it points to the need for this. So are there any other further questions, comments about here now, back to the original numbers since the amendment has been withdrawn? If there are no other questions, I can call for a vote on that. Okay.
What is the dollar?
I just have one question. What is the number we're working with at this minute?
Thank you for saying that. For that approved number, the highest number we can go to is $87,958,484.
Thank you.
And fact check me on that. It's the right one.
I remember it in my head.
Know that came out of this. Okay, so I'm gonna call the vote, and remember, we have one account after the CIP. And so I'm calling a vote. We are recommending $87,958,484 for account 1080 education. And I guess we can do a roll call vote. I think that's usually easier for vote taking as well. So, yes. Second here. Yeah. Representative. Yes. Representative Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Representative Robertson.
Yes.
Representative McElroy.
Yes.
Didn't need to roll call. Representative Perella.
Yes.
And Representative Whitney. Yes. So that motion passes. 6 in favor, none opposed, and none abstained. So that's 6-0-0. And now we're on to our last item here.
Thank you.
Okay.
And just to point out, the auditorium is the only one that could be considered for a change.
We can do that. How many?
You just say.
Oh, yes, thank you. So our next account is it's a CIP, which is a capital improvement project. You're in CIP 5, which is for education. On our agenda, as I mentioned earlier, our meeting has been pointed out, we have several CIPs. However, all but one of these were zeroed out in the town manager's budget, and we can only go between 0 and 0. So there's absolutely no reason for us to consider those at this point. But if you are interested in what each one of these CIPs is, there is explanation in the town budget book, even though they're currently zeroed out. The one that we are considering is CIP 5 education, and it is F, Fitch High School auditorium. That's page 233 on the town budget book, and the town council number is 0 on this, and then the highest number that we can get is we could go to would be the town manager's number, which someone will have to check for me from memory. I believe it's $144,000.
That sounds right.
And so we should check. I'm just not on it.
141.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
141. Thank you. Yeah. So it's $141,000. That's the town manager's number. Town council number is 0. We can start anywhere. If someone would like to move a number, and the CIP 5F Fitch High School auditorium.
I'll move the number. Sorry about that. I'll move the 141,000 for discussion.
Thank you. Discussion, and actually, if you could describe what it is
Okay.
exactly first, more than just.
I can start, but I'd like Dr. Clint Kennedy, who's our IT director, to come on up to help me with this. But our Fitch auditorium is in the vintage wing of Fitch. And that was phase 2 that was never accomplished, which is still outstanding. And it's a beautiful auditorium. But if you've been in there, and as I said, we are a musical arts community and our students can perform, but it's devastating when you don't hear them because of the sound system and you can't see them because of the lights. And then there's really old furniture. So this is going to give us really a little bit of repair and so that we can really accentuate our performers. So I would like for you to talk a little bit more about the specifics.
I'll be brief, but I'm happy to elaborate as you wish. Really 4 parts. There's sound, lights, projection, and seating. I'll start with the easiest first. Much used space closer to the stage. We have seats that are broken, stained, beyond repair, and so forth, become a safety issue and an optics issue. So that is part 1. Part 2 is projection. Currently, when we have a speaker in, or if we have a multimedia performance or what have you, we have a desktop projector that's designed for a classroom that's been repurposed onto a cart. It's moved to the front of the stage in the pit area, and then is aimed at a older screen that gets pulled down for that. So this would add a modern projection system mounted and being able to connect, whether you're in the pit, whether you're in the stage right or left or in the booth. Third part is lighting. We have very, very old fixtures that we can no longer get bulbs for. So we're working at about half capacity. They also take up a lot more. They're far less efficient just because of the power draw, because of the older bulbs and so forth. So that is number 3. And the 4th component is sound. This would go into continuing the march to digitizing our sound system overall. It will include speakers, but it will also include cabling and the equipment needed so that we can, whether it's a music performance, theater production, or a speaker, be able to have better sound appropriate for the space. We have some wonderful people that by hook or by crook have made it work to date, but even those efforts are starting to fail semi-regularly, if not regularly, at some of these performances, both for our students and our organizations, but also outside vendors that pay to use the facility for that, which that money then goes directly to the town. So those are really those 4 components: seating, projection, lights, and sound. And again, I'm happy to elaborate if you have any questions.
Chairman Whitney, can I just add one point of information on that?
Yes, thank you.
Just to explain why the council cut it. The grant writer for the board has submitted a grant for a Neighborhood Assistance Act for the 141,000. There'll be a public hearing on it. I forget. I think it's beginning of June, but there also looks like they're likely to receive around 20,000 from another grant. But just to give you the reason, I think it's a great project. But just so you know why the council zeroed it out, to see where the grants go.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to bring that up. And could you explain for everyone what the nature of that is? Because sometimes that gets hard to track. Actually, the grant.
Did you ask me something?
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't hear. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing.
The nature of that grant, just wondering if you could go into more detail, because I think that's.
It essentially, we do this every year. It's not our funds. It's not even really state funds. What it is more of if a business matches with, you fall under the guidelines. If a business out there like Groton Utilities usually does it every year, and some other local businesses, if they match with you and say, yes, we want to sponsor your project, what they do is instead of paying that amount in taxes, they get to save that and pay for the item.
Thank you.
No.
And that, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So if the grant money comes through, town manager Burke, and we approve this money, how does that, if they fund more, what happens with that approved money?
It would lapse back into the capital projects fund.
Okay, so in case something else happens, you could use it if there was an emergency.
Correct. Correct.
And the timeline for, so that's the Board of Ed grant writer that.
Yes.
What's kind of the rough-
Yeah, and then we discussed a little bit last night, the council, they're setting, you have to have a public hearing first, so they're setting the public hearing for the first council in June. My guess is tentatively, don't hold me to about 3 months timeline-ish till you would know 3-4 months.
And so, thank you for that. So, that timeline, it's like grant, not like notice of either getting it or not within half a year. So my guess is this is the kind of project that could only be done during the summer months.
Certainly not impossible to do while school is in session, but certainly as we bring vendors in and move equipment and so forth, for example, projection would be mounted in the ceiling. So we would have equipment coming in, moving seats added, but so I would dare say that the auditorium would not be operable at that time over the course of how long that would take to complete.
And so realistically, I mean, I always discount how much time there is for planning actually to do these projects, but it certainly wouldn't be something if we approved it tonight that could be, and the RTM approved it, that would probably be done this summer, maybe, I don't know.
Certainly components of it, yes.
Yeah, but then if with this grant horizon, it certainly could, if it were from external grants, would wait until next summer, not this coming one, but next year, would that be an issue? I mean, I know the state of the system, that's why I'm asking.
Sure. We will make it work regardless. That's our mission and we will do it. But these are been kicked down the road for a considerable amount of time. And this summer would be a perfect time to make these improvements so they're ready when teachers and students return late August.
That's why you're there, but I didn't want to.
My understanding is that they have to be,
Oh, sorry.
so I was just telling you.
Please.
These projects need to be what they call shovel ready. Is this project shovel ready? Or would it be?
I would feel more comfortable understanding what, and I have not seen the grant application nor the request that went out for it. These are ready for, these improvements need to be made now.
So there is a plan.
There is a plan, absolutely. We've been marching towards that. So they are ready to go now. We are ready to engage in this process right now. Yes, there's nothing holistic back, save funding for us doing that.
So you could start the project the day after it's approved.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, that's pretty much gonna be just one question was, if the RTM approved this CIP, how quickly could the improvements be made and arranged?
I'm going to defer the seating plans to Mr. Kilpatrick. But as far as the lighting, projection, and sound, I've already engaged with vendors to get ballpark quotes, non-binding quotes, just to understand. That's how we came up ultimately with the number for the request. So those vendors are ready to follow the process that we would have, a bidding process, what have you, following town statutes. I can start that tomorrow.
Appreciate that. And I also would, maybe this is a question for town manager Bert or someone else with some more financial understanding. If the CIP is awarded, through this committee in the RTM,
right?
Then also the grant is awarded. The school district what would happen then? We would pay back.
It would eventually come back to the capital projects fund because any CIP has a specific purpose, and if a project wraps up and it's not used, it's swept back, but at the latest it lasts 5 years and then gets swept away if it wasn't used. So, but if you knew you weren't gonna need it, we could sweep it, immediately as soon as you knew.
Understood, yeah. So the most effective way to get this repair done would be to approve the CIP, activate that, and there's a tremendous safety net there as far as paying back the town should we win the grant.
So that's a very good point. I had a sort of related question. I know we have a professional grant writer or and the team really been quite successful at competitive grants. And it's add that extra, the extra that's still needed to the school system. So I, if I'm gonna bet on someone, I'll bet on your grant team. But if it doesn't come, if we were not to approve the CIP, so and I guess we'd be recommending something other than $141,000. Would the town council and the RTM be able to take it up off budget cycle if that didn't come through, 4 months from now? Could that be brought back in, or are we locked to making our decision now? Or
I mean, it's not out of the question. It would take Board of Ed would have to officially request it, go to the council, and ultimately to the RTM. Not a ton of money, and like I said, I believe you're. I don't know if you got an official notice, but I think you're receiving another grant for in the 20,000 ballpark, so that'll offset it some right there.
Okay.
So yeah, if I may comment on that. So there's a grant called PEG-PISA, and forgive me, I do not know what the acronym fully stands for. Dollars typically come from bills that you pay for telecommunications, your cable bill, your phone bill, and so forth. There's a small, you might notice multiple line items on that. That goes into a fund which both town and the Board of Education can apply for dollars. We've been successful in the past. We did put in a request that did not include this equipment. It's other audiovisual equipment that we put in. We've been notified unofficially, all towns, that they would be cut $20,000. That is not official, nor have we been given any guidance whether we can change what we asked for. That would then be possibly able to cover what we're discussing right now. So those are things I do not know at this time. Is it a possibility? Sure. Is that official by any means? Absolutely not.
And the other grant, I was listening to the grant information, but I didn't write down. Would it be for the full amount? I didn't write that down.
Sorry.
Sorry, I thought you were asking me something.
Yeah.
The neighborhood grant, John.
Yeah,
I think it was
application.
the same amount.
Yeah, same amount.
So
141.
41.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think it's just important to note that if the choice is to remain at zero for the CIP, that would guarantee a delay in the repair until next summer, essentially. Because, or you would ensure.
Or you might not get them.
Massive disruption to the school's operation of the auditorium during the school year. If you pass the CIP now, it guarantees that we can get going on the repair this summer and be ready to go for the school year with a new setup in the auditorium. That's the choice.
Should the whole RTM.
And there's a safety net of reimbursement should we win the grant. However, the only thing that is guaranteed in this situation is that if you do not approve the CIP, it will delay project and possibly cause disruptions in the coming school year.
Where does the money get placed, in the education budget or the general fund?
These are, so this is an educated related account, which is all on the town side. I may have missed this. So we're looking for a 3 or 4 month horizon from say now for a yes on the grant. That would be, is that still during the summer? It feels like like 4 months, but like right at the end.
Correct.
August, September.
Yeah, and so my experience with grants is, and so this would probably just, I don't know, it would be, I think, for materials and kind of contractual labor. So my experience with grants is that spending, with a few exceptions, has to happen like post-award of the grant. There's some pre-award that you can do, but you have to, at least at that point, the pre-award comes in if you know you've got it, but the money's not come through.
Yeah.
So my question is, for this particular grant, the neighborhood grant, would it reimburse for costs already spent? Because it seems to me that whatever we do during the summer is before the grant dollars would come through. That would be key for me. To know.
I do not have an answer for you.
I was wondering if Town Manager Bird was familiar at all with the grants.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, it's a winding one. So my question is, with this neighborhood grant, essentially, does all activity on that grant have to happen after it's been awarded, or can it reimburse for costs already spent? It's different from what I would think it would be that last.
I can't answer that definitively. I'd have to do some research.
I'll just finish up. Thank you for that answer. So my uncertainty with that, I'm inclined to, I think we'll have some of those answers as the RTM process goes on, even though it's only a week here, and then we can reconsider things. But maybe having the dollar value that we've got here rather than 0.1 would kind of help keep that debate active and help give us a little more initiative to right now. So I'm kind of betting that the grant comes through, but it does seem like a safeguard, or at least to have meaningful discussion for it. So I'll support the $141,000, but I really hope the grant comes through and we use that.
And I should be able to get an answer for you by next week.
That's good.
My understanding, excuse me, Town Manager Burke, with these grants as, which are a little bit different than the ARPA grants with the CIPs, that the way that the grant is written is a determining factor of the time period, and whether, I think that's how it works, right? How are we going to implement that? So, and then, how the grant is written.
Yeah, I don't have that. Yeah, I mean, obviously each grant's different. I'd have to look at it. I just can't answer though. And going back to the thing about pre-spending, my best guess is that they probably wouldn't reimburse, but I just can't say that definitively.
That's what I'm feeling too. And I just, we're talking about numbers. I just want to say briefly that the high school audit program, we brought up like every school uses that. It is the gathering place for the school system, like not the only one, but for large gatherings. The Pitch High School auditorium has been, in a good way, a touchstone through generations. But they shouldn't be seeing the same light bulbs. They're in high school or saying, so some rejuvenation.
Yeah.
Would be good. And I've experienced that sound and lighting.
At least to start.
And just as an aside, if you sit up on stage ever when they're having a smaller function, they'll bring out folding chairs or an outside. And as a way that you can see school system money is well invested, those chairs, those folding chairs come from school systems that were community schools that aren't around, haven't been around since I've been here. And it's just wonderful. Just sometimes pay attention to the backs of the chairs and you can see the foundation that each of our proud institutions have been built on. It's just totally that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so no other questions, then I'll call a vote. And this is CIP 5F right there. $141,000 for Pitch High School auditorium. And I think okay, so anyone in favor say, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? That motion passes 6-0-0. Don't go anywhere. We have One more agenda item, number 4, adjournment. We are adjourned.
Yes, I would.
Thank you very, very much.